miles per hour.
I think it's quite extraordinary that it's an electric car and it can go just about as fast as a standard Formula car.
Los Angeles is one of 10 globally selected to host the Formula E races, in part due to its burgeoning electric vehicle infrastructure. Specifically, the LA Department of Water and Power is upgrading and installing 121 public electric vehicle charging stations and issuing rebates for in-home electric charger equipment and installation fees. The city's mission and vision aligning with that of Formula E.
Think, for example, of a city with magnetic coils under all the streets and with cars that drive around without the necessity of being recharged.
That dream still years away. The city and Formula E must first prepare for 2014. And to see what the view of the city will look like from behind the wheel, Mayor Villaraigosa takes the seat temporarily vacated by ex-Formula One racer and Formula E test driver Lucas de Grassi. But when time comes for the actual race next year, professional drivers will be behind the wheel, and you can bet the cars will be going much faster than this, when the streets of downtown LA become the racetrack of the future. The Los Angeles Formula E race is planned to take place on the streets of downtown LA, but the final track has not been announced. The LAPD has confirmed the date for LA's next gun buyback event. Gil Reyes has details on the program and the 4 sites hosting this No Questions Asked exchange program.
Flanked by firearms surrendered over the years, LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa says you can't argue with success.
A 66% drop in gang homicides since we began this program.
For the past 4 years, LA's gun buyback program has invited people to turn in unwanted firearms to police, no questions asked. In exchange, they receive Ralph's Supermarket gift cards, or their equivalents in cash if the cards run out. Between January and April of this year, the LAPD counts 279 victims of gun violence, a significant drop from the year before the program started.
That's 200 less victims over a 4-month period of gun violence due to the multi-pronged approach that this city has taken in addressing gun and gang violence.
The LAPD also credits outreach by the city's gang reduction and youth development program. Now to the buyback locations for Saturday, May 4th. The LAFD Fire Academy at 1700 Stadium Way in Elysian Park. The Park and Ride parking lot at 1300 West Pacific Coast Highway in Wilmington. Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church at 7900 Southwestern Avenue in South LA, and the Van Nuys Masonic Building Association at 14750 Sherman Way in Van Nuys. Drop-off times are 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I encourage every Angelino to turn in their guns and say no to senseless violence in our neighborhoods.
And heading into the event, here is a breakdown on the pricing. It is $100 for every handgun, shotgun, and rifle turned in, $200 for every assault weapon. In Elysian Park, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
The gun buyback event has traditionally been held on Mother's Day weekend, but was moved up to May 4th. Since the program started in 2009, people have turned in nearly 10,000 unwanted firearms. Practically everyone owns a pair of jeans, but the popular denim wear takes on a whole new meaning as individuals worldwide don denim to raise awareness about rape and sexual violence. Anna Marcos explains what Denim Day is all about.
It may look like a day for office casual, but all these pairs of jeans are out to make more than a fashion statement. These women and men in blue are out to stamp out rape and sexual violence as they celebrate the 14th annual Denim Day in LA.
We wear jeans as a visible demonstration of protest against misconceptions that surround sexual assault.
Denim Day was born in Italy 14 years ago after a judge ruled a rape victim was to blame for her rape because she was wearing tight jeans. The next day, Italian parliament members showed up to work in jeans as a protest. Soon, LA and other cities around the world joined in.
From New Delhi to New York, from Chicago to the Congo, from Karachi to Steubenville, from Miramonte Elementary School, and now to Occidental College. Rape is a local and global, national and international issue and affects us all.
The fight against rape in L.A. has made progress, with rapes down by more than a third since 2005, and the backlog of rape cases has been wiped out. Rape kits are now analyzed within 30 days to provide speedier justice for the victims.
Rape, domestic violence are extremely underreported crimes. And they're not underreported because the victims think they have no consequence. They're underreported because the victims are in fear.
Denim Day has taken on new meaning in light of recent rape cases in places like Ohio and San Francisco, where teens posted images of sexual attacks online.
We do a lot of youth programming with prevention with the Los Angeles Unified School District, Pasadena Unified, and Alhambra Unified to really educate students on what is a healthy relationship, what is sexual violence, what is sexual harassment, what is teen dating violence, so that we can build a violence-free Los Angeles.
The denim movement has now grown to 6 million people worldwide. Its goal to hunt down sexual violence so it no longer claims more victims. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
For more information on how the city is fighting domestic and sexual violence, visit safela.org. Those who live near LAX don't just have to contend with the noise above, they have to contend with the big problem right under their feet, buckling sidewalks. Now a big makeover is underway that promises to beautify the neighborhood near the world's 6th busiest airport. This busy stretch of Sepulveda Boulevard near the Los Angeles International Airport does have sidewalks, but tell that to the area's pedestrians and joggers.
We don't want our buckling sidewalks. We don't want the city to see street routes that erupt, that are unsafe, and our citizens can't walk down Sepulveda Boulevard.
Sheila Mickelson, a Westchester resident, was the force behind what will soon take place. Thanks to federal funding, the help of community organizations, and an agreement with the nearby Howard Hughes development, preparations are finally underway to begin work on the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Project, transforming Sepulveda Boulevard from 80th Street to 84th Place with 42 new trees, meandering sidewalks, and 1,600 feet of landscaping.
I'm a little emotional. It's been over 10 years with this project.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters recalls Mickelson and another Westchester resident reaching out to her for help.
It was back in 2006 that Sheila Mickelson and Barbara Musella of the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association first approached me to discuss how they and other community leaders felt that the condition of Sepulveda Boulevard was an embarrassment to the city of Los Angeles.
Councilman Bill Rosendahl, standing in front of one of the worst stretches of sidewalks in the city, says all the thanks go to the determined residents and Congresswoman Waters.
Maxine, you are a fighter for what's right. And when you put $1 million up out of the federal government and said, go ahead and get going and fix up that disastrous entrance to Los Angeles, that was the catalyst.
This is the first neighborhood that many travelers see upon arriving at LAX, and the last one they see before they depart our city. This is a vibrant community that is often called the gateway to Los Angeles.
And the hope is soon those who pass through the world's 6th busiest airport will be welcomed with a streetscape worthy of this world-class destination city. The sidewalk project is expected to start this fall. So many people come from all over the world in pursuit of the arts. And to celebrate the arts, hundreds of arts advocates came out to City Hall for Arts Day 2013. Here is Cindy San Luis.
The city of Los Angeles was built on entertainment, and Arts Day is an annual opportunity for Angelinos to celebrate the contributions of arts and culture to the community and to talk with their elected officials about why the arts are important.
It allowed me to grow, to be a creative thinker, to improvise, problem solving, and a lot of the problems that I face now seem really easy having had that opportunity to think outside the box.
Let's hear it for the arts!
Nearly 400 arts advocates convened at City Hall to celebrate Arts Day 2013. The council chamber was flooded with a sea of red as a few hundred people donned special Arts Day t-shirts in support of the festivities.
We're the blood of this city, that we are the creative capital, and that we fuel it.
Now in its second year, Arts Day unites artists, audiences, and arts organizations with the leaders who represent them in City Hall.
We wanted to strengthen the relationship between arts practitioners and their elected officials.
Who we are, this is what we do, we advocate for arts.
Arts Day delegates also attended a workshop to learn about the etiquette of meeting with elected officials, followed by lunch with Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa.
Arts and culture are part of a fabric of a community that can make it live and thrive and be a safe community as well.
Arts Day is an opportunity to highlight the contributions of the arts to all spheres of life, from education to business, public safety to healthcare, to transportation to innovation. Arts for LA hopes events like this will bring continued support and investment to the city's creative community. From City Hall, I'm Cindy San Luis for LA This Week.
The Los Angeles Mayor's Council on Innovation and Industry recently revealed our city has the second largest population of artists in the United States. Improvements coming to the communities along the Gold Line East Side extension. LAX is looking to fill 80 retail positions, and poll workers are still needed for the May 21st elections. These stories and more in City Beat. Councilmember Jose Huizar, the Department of Public Works and Metro, recently broke ground in Boyle Heights for a $12 million pedestrian improvement project in and around 4 stations of the Metro Gold Line East Side extension along First Street. Huizar says the East Side Access Improvement Project will enhance pedestrian and ridership experience and support local business and the Boyle Heights Arts District. Specifically, the project will transform Bailey Street into an extension of the Mariachi Plaza station, creating a pedestrian connection from the plaza to Pennsylvania Avenue and Bailey Street. Actor and comedian Russell Brand made an appearance in council chambers recently to announce his intentions to bring rehab services to the vacant building in Pacoima that used to house another rehab program, People in Progress. Brand is himself a recovering addict.
While superficially there are some ugly aspects to the disease of addiction and the condition of homelessness, what I see there is tremendous potential for change.
I offered to provide the $500,000 over there so they could rehab the facility and create 26 jobs, permanent jobs in the process.
The City Council approved reallocating $500,000 in community development block grants from Alarcon's district to help jumpstart the project, which is actually outside of Alarcon's district. Los Angeles International Airport is holding a job fair to fill 80 retail store positions for new high-end retail duty-free stores opening this summer in the new Tom Bradley International Terminal. Duty-free shops, or DFS, one of the world's leading luxury retailers for the traveling public and airports, is seeking bilingual employees to fill 50 sales associate and 30 beauty advisor positions for cosmetic and fragrance brands. Go to lawa.org/BJRC to apply online. Interviews will be conducted on May 6th in the Flight Path Museum near the airport. Walk-ins are also welcome from 1:30 to 4 p.m. The Election Division of the Office of the City Clerk is seeking additional poll workers for the May 21st general, municipal, and special elections, 1,300 more to be exact. Spanish or Korean bilingual poll workers are especially needed. In all, the Election Division expects to place approximately 6,400 poll workers to work at the various polling locations. Poll workers earn stipends for each election day they work and for attending a training class. For more information on qualifications, call the Election Division's Poll Worker Recruitment Hotline toll-free at 866-899-VOTE. An orange grove belonging to the Department of Water and Power is being used for greater good. Its fruits will now be donated to the area's needy families. Rasha Goel has more.
A 9.8-acre area within the Franklin Canyon Park in Los Angeles has been restored thanks to a donation from the David Bonnet Foundation.
Each one of us can make a difference in our community through a donation large or small, $1 or more, to the LA Parks Foundation.
Known as the Franklin Canyon Orange Grove Park, the site will be maintained to provide sustainable food to help feed families in need. The Department of Water and Power is leasing the land to the Department of Recreation and Parks.
This is a historic grove, and a combination with an organization that makes sure this is not just looking at fruit, it's edible fruit. Working with the Department of Water and Power on a special agreement, we've had this new grove.
Through the donation, 168 new Valencia orange trees have been added to the existing orange grove.
There were about 34 trees that we had to remove because they hadn't been properly irrigated. We put in all new irrigation.
Those in need are already benefiting from the fruitful production. Recently, volunteers from Food Forward, an urban hunger nonprofit organization, were here to pick from the first harvest to help serve those in need.
They harvest and then donate to over 50 agencies who are feeding folks, whether they're shelters or their food banks or their after-school programs.
And residents are also looking forward to the enhanced area being a positive influence in their community.
I think that's absolutely wonderful. It goes kind of further than this neighborhood to help people.
We are adding parks within the city at places that need it, at places there should be, in heritage sites like this.
And for those wondering how many oranges these trees will bring, we are told a normal fruit tree can yield anywhere from 300 to 500 pounds. That means this orchard can expect oranges in the thousands. In Los Angeles, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
There are a total of 246 orange trees throughout the grove, which will be harvested 4 times a year. In this week's list of things to do, a Chinatown walking tour, the city's latest gun buyback program, and a photography exhibit at a Venice gallery. There's always something new to learn about our city, and on Saturday, May 4th, you can learn all about Chinatown during the Chinatown Walking Tour. The walk from noon to 2 begins at 900 North Broadway in front of the Little Joe's restaurant sign. This walk, led by Mike Sonkson, a third-generation LA native, KCET columnist, and longtime tour guide, will explore the temples, unique storefronts, and cultural landmarks found in this historic neighborhood. You must first RSVP via the Craft and Folk Art Museum by emailing rsvp@cafam.org. And a reminder that the city is hosting its latest gun buyback program on Saturday, May 4th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 4 different locations. You can find the locations and addresses by going to our Facebook page at facebook.com/LA This Week. You can drop off unwanted firearms, no questions asked, in exchange for a supermarket gift card in the amount of $100 or $200, depending on the weapon turned in. And for a bit of art and culture, you have from now until Sunday, May 5th, to catch the In Foco or In Focus National Traveling Exhibit on view at the Venice Arts Gallery, located at 1702 Lincoln Boulevard in Venice. The exhibit highlights the photographic visions of 56 artists affiliated with the New York-based nonprofit In Foco over the past 4 decades. In Foco is dedicated to promoting cultural diversity in the field of photography. This is the exhibition's only Los Angeles stop on its national tour. For more details, go to venicearts.org. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do. It's not every day you get to go downhill skateboarding on city streets, at least not in a safe way. But recently, several city streets in San Pedro were blocked off so skateboarders could enjoy the ultimate thrill ride. Yana Kay explains.
Keep them safe! Keep them safe!
These kids are doing what they love, skateboarding.
I do downhill. It's going to be sick. I do it all the time, like every day.
It's all part of the first ever San Pedro Skate Festival, which blocked off several city streets to create a temporary closed course for all the skaters to enjoy, free from cars, pedestrians, and bicyclists.
What I heard from the skateboard community is they wanted to have a venue, a safe, controlled environment for them to downhill skate where it's controlled and also gives us an opportunity to focus on the importance of safety as well.
With the support of Councilman Joe Buscaino's office, The Festival of Skate brought together the skateboarding community to promote the sport while giving skaters a chance to have fun on a safe downhill course.
Because I like to skate.
For parents, they say this event gives them peace of mind.
I'd rather be here supporting him, knowing that it's in a safer environment than him being out in the streets where there's cars and it's not blocked off, and it's just safer here.
A safe place where skateboarders can engage their need for speed. I'm Yana Kay for LA This Week.
Councilmember Joe Buscaino says he wants to bring the Festival of Skate to other locations around Los Angeles. And that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
I'm Renee, representing for Juventus from Van Nuys. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, May 1st, and I want to welcome you to your Los Angeles City Council meeting. My name is Herb Wesson. I'll be today's presiding officer. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Today, at this time, we do not have a quorum, but we have a special treat provided to us by Council Member Dennis Zine. So, Mr. Zine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. Lawyers harmonizing for Law Day. May 1st is Law Day, and Gary Green, standing to my left, and his big band of barristers launch Law Day ceremonies here at City Hall. Attorneys from the Los Angeles area, and we're very honored to have amongst the musicians with us today the presiding judge of the Court of Appeals, and that is Justice Arthur Gilbert, who plays the piano. So these attorneys will appear before the justice, and today we're all playing together on Law Day. So Gary Green and his big band of barristers, America's #1 legal band, was proclaimed by the American Bar Association. They will kick off Law Day ceremonies in Los Angeles with the performance this morning here before us in council chambers. Since 1958, Law Day is celebrated nationally to observe the nation's commitment to the rule of law. This year's theme, Realizing the Dream, celebrates the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation issued by President Abraham Lincoln in 1863. Schools, libraries, state and local bar associations and courts across the country will participate in Law Day events today. So Gary Green's big band of barristers is composed of lawyers and the California Court of Appeals presiding Justice Arthur Gilbert. They will be performing for us in just a couple moments. They perform music from the golden era of the big band and volunteer in concerts raising money for those who cannot afford legal services. Organized the band in 2011, and this is in addition to his very successful Los Angeles Lawyers Philanthropic, you are philanthropic, Philharmonic and Legal Voices that he founded and conducts. Barristers made its debut January 21st, 2012 at the Radio and Television News Association's 62nd annual Golden Mike Award in Universal City, and has since performed in such venues as Shrine Auditorium and the Art Institute in Chicago. The band is where lawyers and judges meet in harmony, and it is music that prevails. And we have the band before us, and we do have the certificate of recognition to you, Gary Green, and your big band of barristers, Law Day 2012, signed by myself, the entire city elected family, mayor, city controller, city attorney, and all my colleagues here on council. To your group for the wonderful work that they do to help people, to spread the word. And it's interesting that today is Law Day, and we recognize, we celebrate that. And there will be a major march throughout Los Angeles regarding the immigration laws, so it's appropriate that we kick it off here in council chambers, Law Day 2013, with your band. So,
well, Mr. Zine, allow me to have Mr. Corrett say a few words.
Okay. We were going to try and move this along to listen to the music, but we'll listen to speeches.
I'd just like to say that this has to be the most notable group of musicians that we've ever had in City Hall. Pretty amazing group of lawyers and judges, and Gary Green's been a friend of mine since, well, I hesitate to say how long, but I'm not sure he had yet passed the bar when we met. So he's gone on to have an amazing career, but most amazing to me is what you've done with volunteer organizations of musicians. I know of this group. I've never heard it, so this is a great opportunity for me. Congratulations on everything that you've done, and thank you all for being here.
And I see Mr. Garcetti is looking at the piano saying, I want to play too, because we know
Mr.
Garcetti is also part of that musical group.
Mr. Zine, I just want to say the greatness is when the fruit doesn't fall from the tree. Gary's father started the Los Angeles Junior Philharmonic, and every year he came in here, rain, shine, wind, whatever it was, he brought the Junior Philharmonic, so here it is again. This is very special, Mr. Zine. I'm sure you didn't think of this, but he is the one who we want to salute. I kid you, Dennis, you got to smile a little. He told me I couldn't make the fire department once, so I always got to get back to him. This is a special family. Let's give Gary and his family a big hand.
All right, we ready to go? All right, Gary.
I'll say a big thank you, and we'll say the rest in music.
All right, here we go. Take it away.
Well, this is general. This is only if somebody has some questions about cases.
There's the sheriff. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Parks. How are you?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Magnificent. Magnificent. You guys are invited back every year. Mr. Koretz?
I think we should invite them back every day. We need a house band for the city of Los Angeles.
You got my vote. Again, thank you, folks. Thank you very much for starting off our day in a very festive mood. Let's give them another round of applause. They deserve that and more.
Hey, Eric.
Mr. Clerk, even though we have somewhat of a distraction as they're now moving their equipment, I would still believe that we could go through the agenda. And so we have a quorum. Could you please call the roll?
Very good, sir. Alarcon, Buscaino, England, DeGrasse City, Weezer, Koretz, Kokorian, LaBonge, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zion, Wesson. 13 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Buscaino moves, Koretz seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Zion moves, Krikorian seconds. So that should take us to the first section of items on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
And any announcements that you need to make pre-council meeting?
Very good, sir. There are requests to continue items 12 to May 15 and 29 to May 3. Again, item 12 to May 15 and item 29 to May 3.
Okay, without objection.
Very good, sir. Items 1 through 12 are items noticed for public hearing.
Okay, cards.
Item 4, sir.
Okay, members, specials. 1 through 12 members. Okay, let's prepare to vote on that, Madam Clerk. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and now tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, let's move to the next section, 13 through 27.
Yes, sir. The, items 13 through 27 are items for which public hearings have been held. Mr. President, we should hold item 23 on the desk for an amending motion.
Okay, without objection, that'll be the order. Specials, members, specials, 13 through 27. Seeing none, let's...
Mr. President, pardon me. We were holding 13 for a committee report. That report is in, however, a public hearing was not satisfied in committee. That being the case, there is a card on 13. Council is required to take that.
Okay, let's hold 13 and let's prepare to vote on the other items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that brings us to what, 28 through 38?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Items 28 through 38 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are now before us. Specials members, Mr. Buscaino.
Item 37 for Mr. Weezer, please.
37 for Mr. Weezer. Mr. Parks.
I would like to reflect a no vote for 33. I don't want to hold it.
Okay. Mr. Englander.
Appointment to the...
I didn't hear you.
On 28, the appointment to the retirement system. Are you going to be holding the appointment on the desk?
It's my... Mr. Clerk, do you have an announcement? Oh, it's on item 29.
That was
we can hold 28 if you'd like. We have cards?
Yes, sir, we do. We have cards on items 32, 33, 36, 37, and 38.
Does that leave anything left to vote for?
Yes, sir, there are a few.
Then let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, the next section.
Mr. President, that takes council back to presentations, items called special, or general public comment.
Okay, let me see. Item 33 is held special by Mr. John Walsh. So, Mr. Walsh, we're going to take up item 33.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Friday, the entire Swan Lake performed here by the LAFD, the fire department. Come and see it. This is item 33, and this concerns an attempt to weaken the Ralph M. Brown public meeting law. Remember, I like these fools to get up and say, "Thank you, City Council, for giving me permission to speak." They don't give you permission. Ralph M. Brown, who's been dead for 40 years, gave you permission. That was a law. This law is unique in the United States. It's unique in the world. Nobody in the world gets to bawl out their representatives the way we are here, and that's the Old West tradition. That's the white Anglo-Saxons and Protestants who came to this country and gave us that permission. HollywoodHighlands.org, 1 minute.
Okay, members, let's prepare to vote on item 33. Let's open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes, 1 no.
Okay, let's do item 13, held by Mr. Arnold Sachs.
And Mr. President, for clarification, there is a communication from the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee that has been distributed and is now before Council for its consideration.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. And I thank the committee for not having a quorum to be able to speak in front of the council. It was quite a history that the gentleman who's looking to serve this position gave the Mr. Alarcon. He mentioned that he has worked for other committees. And one of the committees he mentioned he worked on, or one of the groups he worked on, was a redevelopment agency. And so I asked the question, he mentioned, the gentleman mentioned the lack of redevelopment areas in South Central LA. And so, Mr. Chair, the question would be, why is there a lack of redevelopment areas in LA? Doesn't this area have a lot of blighted conditions? But more importantly, when redevelopment was phased out, according to state law, that the successor agencies would have to retire redevelopment debts and contractual obligations. So the reason I bring that up is because Metro in March had an item on their agenda regarding deobligation, and they're deobligating projects that are funded with redevelopment agency funds, approximately $26 million. So why is redevelopment agency funding Metro projects? And since the gentleman mentioned that he was historically on the redevelopment agency, and now you want to put him on housing, that's a little bit sketchy that they don't answer that. The funds have been deobligated even though state law says they're required to be funded. And now he's going to go into housing and work for a nonprofit group that has a item on the housing and economic agenda that, we're out of time. We'll have questions on that.
Mr. Walsh, John Walsh, item 13.
minute two. John.
1 second, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Perry?
I'm sorry. I thought you were done with this item. I'll wait till you're done.
Okay. Go on, Mr. Walsh. Back to you.
May I have permission to speak on the topic? Now, I'm sure this is the same Paul C. Hudson that I've known for 20 years. And I want to know, I don't know if he's here, but when he was appointed by Reardon to the MTA board, I believe he was one of the people responsible for the consent decree. Remember, we got the consent decree that gave $2 billion to bus riders from the Republicans. The Democrats fought it tooth and nail, Gloria. It was Mr. Reardon who gave us the $2 billion shifted from rail to operating the bus system. And I believe this is the same Paul C. Hudson who was a banker. He was always polite to the public. He was a pleasure to speak in front of. I hope this is the same Paul Hudson. Thank you. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Alarcon.
Yes, council members. Mr. Walsh, I think it is the same Paul Hudson. He just hasn't aged like most of us. And by the way, I was on that MTA board and I supported that consent decree. Thank you. Council members, we every once in a while an appointee comes in who is ultimately qualified to serve on any number of commissions, and Mr. Hudson meets that criteria. Well established in promoting economic development, primarily in the African American community, but throughout. And has been chairman of Community Build Inc., chairman of Ebony Repertory Theater, chairman of the Center for Social Inclusion. He's part of the Tuskegee Airmen Scholarship Foundation, African American Board Leadership Institute. This is somebody who obviously is dedicated and embraces the civil rights movement in his heart. And being that he established one of the first minority-owned banks in the Los Angeles area, he is certainly well qualified to serve on HACLA as it is going through different kinds of transformations, and particularly he mentioned in committee that he is concerned about the South Side, as he has always been. So with that, it's my pleasure to recommend that we approve the nomination of Paul C. Hudson to the HACLA board.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just want to rise in strong support of Mr. Hudson. It's great to see you. We had the great joy of working together when he was at the CRA board, and I was chairing our Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee. And I have to say those were years in which we got some very difficult deals done. Your leadership, your poise under pressure, your humor, and your intelligence are something that have always distinguished you. So I'm glad you're tackling another tough challenge. We've made a lot of progress to the Housing Authority from where it was, but we still have a long way to go. And I would just, I have no questions for you, but just a couple of things to kind of target. One is I think that we can do a lot in our housing developments to look at technology and access to technology for our residents, which a startling statistic in some of our housing projects, we have 5% access to the internet in homes, in a city that has 95% access. And we've got some great partners, some corporate partners and others who want to continue to help us bring that. But I know Joe Buscaino is working on that. I went down with him to Watts, and we helped bring computer and internet access to a family, and you could just see a young girl who's 4 years old there. Her life changed by having that right there. Second, I think the pilot that we've been able to do with the police department and LAPD officers being there after the merger of the housing police with our LAPD department should be something we look at of all our housing developments. I think that's been really successful in bringing that down. When I was a couple projects recently, folks said public safety isn't our #1 concern anymore. And that's astounding in our public housing projects. And then, of course, jobs and what we can do for summer jobs programs to be a partner with the Housing Authority. We turned away 10,000 kids in the just last summer who wanted to work, many in our housing projects, and we didn't have a job for them. Who knows what happened to them, but you know, that whole social fabric that these developments allow us to have, as well as the big redevelopment, but we'll get to that in another day because I know that's going to be a politically contentious and important project, but I just rise with strong support. Really great to see you aboard, and thank you for volunteering and getting your time.
Yep. Mr. Labange.
Just want to add to the parade, a great Roman from Los Angeles High School, Paul Hudson. Thank you, Avak, a classmate, student body president. Very special.
Who knew?
Mr. Rosendahl is okay. Why don't you say a few words, old friend, and it's good to see you.
Just general words. It's an honor to again have the privilege of public service, and I look forward to the opportunity and working with the other commissioners on the HACLA board. And I think that I've always had a concern about public housing and the benefits to residents and the quality of life. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, since Mr. Rosendahl isn't here, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, next I want to go, congratulations. Next I want to go to item 35. It was called special by cards, but I believe the gentleman is left. Is it Mark Glassuk? 35. Item 35. So he's not here. Oh, okay. Well, then that's fine. It's already taken care of. So let's go to item 4. Held special by cards. John Walsh, item 4. Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Sometimes as many as 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people come to just on the hour, that 1 hour that I'm up here. HollywoodHighlands.org. And this concerns this improvement and maintenance of the La Brea and Yucca Lighting District. I live on Yucca Street, not in this area. There was a vote, a result of balloting. We always support the neighborhood on the lighting. When you got rid of the old lighting system, things incredibly improved. The newfangled lighting system works much, much better. We haven't had I haven't seen a burnout. I used to get 2 or 3 a month in my neighborhood. I haven't seen a burnout in Hollywood in about 6 or 7 years. You're doing an excellent job. HollywoodHighlands.org for this.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Yes, Ms. Perry.
May I ask for reconsideration on item number 33?
33. Okay, let's, we're going to vote for reconsideration. Let's, on item 33, let's
Correct.
open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, now it's before us, Ms. Perry.
Yeah, unless I want to send it back to committee.
And what did you want to do with this?
The basis for my request is I have a concern about dollars allocated for public access being swept into the general fund and not used for their intended purpose. I've just spoken with the chief legislative analyst, and there is a report that we need to review and discuss in committee and then bring it back to the full council for a vote.
Without objection, we will.
Can I add one thing to that, Mr. President, please?
Yeah, you can refer it to ITGS.
Yes, that is.
Yes.
Just to add the one friendly comment on that with technology changes, whether it's cable or satellite, people are not getting this service. So just note that, will you, Alan? Both cable and satellite. Thank you.
So for clarification, that would be to refer this matter back, refer it to the ITGS committee.
All right. Now we'll go to item 23 called Special by Cards or Card. Mr. Arnold Sachs. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you again. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. This is a Transportation Committee report relative to establishing Measure R local return programming priorities. But last month, you had programming priorities where you allocated $10 million a year for the next 23 years for the LA downtown streetcar of Measure R local return funding. So how does that, why are you now coming up with Measure R local return programming priorities? You've already allocated $10 million. And if you were paying close attention to the half-cent sales tax that was proposed by the City Council, you'll realize it was raised about $200,000, which comes to $200 million, which comes to $30 million in local return funding. And you've allocated $10 million that for the streetcar. It's ridiculous.
Okay, what I'm going to do on item 23, we're going to close the public hearing on this item, and we're waiting for an amendment, Mr. Buscaino. Okay, so then we'll deal with it. It looks like on item 28 was held for by Mr. Englander, but he is satisfied. But we still have, there are no cards on 28, so let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that item's been approved. Now we move to item 32. Item 32 is called Special by John Walsh and Arnold Sachs.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, minute 4. This is item 32. You want to go right now, you just go like that, and you'll be at J. Walsh Confidential and read all about Eric Garcetti. This is item 32, and this concerns REAP. Again, even Garcetti has done a good job. See, I don't attack somebody except if they deserve it. When Garcetti deserves praise for REAP,
John, the item.
REAP.
Yes.
Quiet. And, gee, you attack me when I attack him, you attack me when I defend him. HollywoodHighlands.org. What REAP is that errant landlords have to pay the rent to the city rather than to put it in their pocket till they fix the problems on their property. HollywoodHighlands.org. Go immediately to J. Walsh Confidential. Thank you.
Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you again, Arnold Sachs. My concern is not so much about the REAP violations, but the use of city resources, which involves the code enforcement unit. Again, you're discussing budgetary items, how much money this brings into the city's general fund versus coming up with code enforcement to enforce your foreclosure plan that requires a $1,000 fine on homes that are in blighted condition, that are in foreclosure. Why are you not using your code enforcement personnel in a more judicious manner? You've had items on your council agenda that you don't want to cut personnel that bring in income to the city's general fund. But here you are, collecting nickels and dimes when thousands and thousands of dollars go used. Yeah, I'm gone. I was gone.
Okay, let's on this item open the roll, Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, now we'll go to item 36, held special by Mr. John Walsh. Item 36.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, put up 2 new blogs in the past 24 hours, and at J. Walsh Confidential. This is item 36. Again, this concerns expiration dates. Whenever I hear that the City Council is extending an expiration date, about 50 red flags come up. That means you're going to go without a contract. But this concerns, and I don't have to spend my whole life on this, I wish I had the time. And what is it? Gas. Southern California Gas franchise extending the expiration date and to June 30th, 2014 or sooner, whatever that means. I want to know, this is Gasgate, I want to know why you are extending it. I want to see some proof of what's happening. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Now we'll move to item 37, Mr. Sachs, called special by Arnold Sachs. We are on item 37.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. I applaud the actual opportunity to look at transit-oriented corridors. The problem that comes up is you bring people into these transit-oriented corridors, let's say, to ride the trains, the subways, or park their vehicles. But then you bring in a developer to develop the property, but you do not maintain the number of car spaces that are there in an undeveloped area. So although you bring in more people who want to ride, eventually they lose the opportunity to use the transit system because private development has allocated parking spaces that were used by the public for their own personal use, for the development. If you're going to allocate or advocate for the transit-oriented development system, you need to be able to have a functional program that allows the parking that's in place to be maintained, because you're actually eliminating ridership from the trains because you're turning over public space to private developers. And that's not your function, and that's not the function of Metro. Metro is to develop a transit system that allows people to ride the system, LADOT, with their Commuter Express. They're going to be losing spaces. And how will they be subsidized that way? Well, you lose riders, you go into bigger debt. We don't care. I got a conversation over here, I got a conversation over there. Thanks anyway, I appreciate the extra time.
Mr. Huizar.
Mr. President and colleagues, I want to introduce you to, as they walk up to the table, the President of the City Planning Commission, Bill Roshan, along with General Managers Mercedes Marquez, Michael O'Gran, and Jay Kim on behalf of Jaime de la Vega. They will present to us what the Transit Corridors Cabinet has been working on for the past several months. For those of you who are not familiar, the Cabinet was created by Executive Directive Number 25 by the Mayor to implement programs and policies that expand transit orientation beyond the site scale. This includes everything from the city's land use plans to our rapidly expanding bike network to our affordable housing improvements and even our street resurfacing program. This can, and I firmly believe it will, help plan our community plans throughout the City of Los Angeles in smarter, more efficient ways. By aligning all of our infrastructure and planning efforts around our expanding transit network, we will maximize the benefits for all Angelinos, and we will make the most of Los Angeles. As a board of director for Metro, who represent the city, I know the importance firsthand of smart transit-oriented development, and I've been seeing it along the Gold Line in Boyle Heights when that was constructed. And following the presentation, you will see what we as the City of Los Angeles is doing to better our transit-oriented corridors. So with that, turn it over.
With that, Mr. Huizar should call on Mr. Reyes.
Okay.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Councilman. First, I want to thank everyone at the table for bringing this to the council, and thank Councilman Huizar for his motion, seconded by Councilman Rosendahl. It's an exciting time when we can start turning this corner. We've been trying to get here for many, many years. When we look at the tension that arises when you speak of affordable housing, we tend to speak to it in isolation. When we talk about open space, we speak to it in isolation. Here's an opportunity to talk about it in a holistic approach, to look at it in a manner that one leverages the other. And when you look at the existing transit stations, like the ones they have as an example in your handout with the CASP, which is the Cornfield Royal Specific Plan, it was that exciting. It got a nice resounding sound effect there. But the fact is, with the introduction of new zones, where we can actually look at floor area ratios and how we can build out within an envelope of space that's been limited by current zones. When you look at the possibility, and this particular area requires no parking for this new development, that in itself is rather startling. But it isn't when you look at the practical application of the transit lines, shuttles, introduction of bikeways and bike paths and green zones, then the automobile doesn't seem as important. But it has to be done comprehensively. So I know we are beginning a whole new dialogue, and I want to thank everyone that's at the table for this opportunity. It's going to take some open-mindedness from those who are still focused on the traditional approach, but the pressures in our city are such that we have to be more creative in how we manage our policies, use our planning police powers, but more importantly, generate revenue for the city in a manner that allows us to address what some call elegant density. Now, depending how that phrase is used and which side of the table you're on, it'll be an exciting time for us to make whole new policy in areas that need it desperately. So for that, I want to thank my colleagues for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to this. And too bad we didn't have this dialogue 6 years ago, so I could have still been in council 6 more years. But it is what it is. I look forward to this exciting time. Congratulations.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah. Well, it's an exciting moment for us, actually. And all of us know that the gridlock that we've all experienced in the last few years has got to change, got to stop. And it is. We're in the process of doing it. And for the public to understand this motion, which I second, of course, says to ensure the City of Los Angeles makes the most of this investment in 2012, Mayor Villaraigosa formed a Transit Corridors Cabinet of key city departments that will work together to foster, incentivize, and build an environment that encourages transit use, optimizes the benefits of transit for all Angelinos, and focuses equitable transit-oriented development. It's a fantastic concept of bringing it all together. I've been saying that forever. Everybody's got to work together. So tell me, who's in this group, and what are your next steps?
Tom, thank you. Council members, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Yeah.
My name is Bill Roshan. I'm co-chair of the Transit Corridor Cabinet.
Yeah.
And let's see, I've been involved with the LA City Planning Commission as president for over 5 years, 7.5 years I've been there. This is the very first time I've ever come before you. Great. I'm really proud to do it because I think of the importance of this issue. And I want to thank all the council members for underlying the significance and importance of this issue. One last frame of reference that I'll offer is that I'm actually a practicing architect, and I'm the first president of the LA City Planning Commission in 90 years, 90, to be president. And the reason I underline that is that this opportunity with the cabinet is very much about planning, policy, economic development, equity, and I think ultimately leadership. I am one of 3 co-chairs, and on the Transit Corridor Cabinet, Mel Wilson from the MTA board is one of them. He very much wanted to be here with us today. And if Mel had been here, what he would remind us about is that Measure R, $40 billion, the city of Los Angeles has to spend around transit. That's a major responsibility. What I often say is the metaphor is the city has bought and purchased the house. Now we need to furnish it. If you're going to live in the house, you have to make sure it's a working environment. That's what the Transit Corridor Cabinet is very much about. We have 113 train stations and the 3rd largest bus system in the country that are about to come before us. Let me give you a quick background on how we got to where we are. A year and a half ago, consultants Robert Severo and Ian Carlton from Berkeley, paid for by the MTA, did a white paper. In that white paper, we looked at what the opportunities are for the city of Los Angeles. One of the first things that came up from that is that we didn't need another vision. If you look back at 1920, we had the red car. 1970, we had the city centers plan. 1993, the city of Los Angeles did a policy transportation plan, which is still very much applicable and relevant today. The opportunity with the white paper and the Transit Corridor Cabinet is to look at tactics, actually a work plan, not another vision statement. The other thing that came out of this, point number 2, is that we talked about it as a TOD cabinet initially, and I think ultimately what we've come to is the understanding that this really is about corridors, not just development. The power behind that is that Los Angeles is a city of extraordinary neighborhoods. I'd have to say that not always do our corridors measure up to those neighborhoods. This is a real opportunity, I think, to build those corridors, to build around connectivity and equity, and to really find a way to not just develop, but to integrate our neighborhoods. We need connectivity that really does support our neighborhoods with walkability and the kind of services that they really can use. The other point I would make is the Transit Corridor Cabinet is very much about bringing these departments together to work together. This is a first among any major cities in the country to have this kind of cooperative body, and the support we've received from all the general managers is really encouraging, and I think it speaks really well for us as we move forward. Finally, the last point that I'll make is around economic development, and I will point out that 77% of all the jobs
Very good, Bill. I want to hear from your other people, too, a little brief report real quick.
I'll go right to them. 77% of the jobs in LA are located within 1 mile of transit. This is a terrific opportunity for us. So with that, I'd like to introduce our second co-chair, who's going to speak to the public engagement piece of the Transit Corridor Cabinet, Dean Matsubayashi, who's with the Little Tokyo Service Center, and Dean will talk about the public engagement piece.
Thank you, Bill. Let me first state that I'm very honored to be here today as the community representative for the Transit Corridors Cabinet. Since the start of the Transit Corridors Cabinet, the community has been eager to have meaningful input on the city's transit initiatives. In fact, a number of community groups already came together well before this initiative started to see how we could work more closely together around transit and insert a stronger equity voice into the conversation. The build-out of our transit network presents both opportunities and challenges, and those with interest in public health, economic development, environmental justice, and affordable housing have already forged coalitions to ensure that everyone in the city of Los Angeles can share in these benefits. Coalitions like LA Thrives, Move LA, and the Alliance for Community Transit, or ACT LA. The build-out of our transit network will also have a transformative effect on many LA neighborhoods, so it's important that the city brings the community to the table, not just to keep them informed, but to actively solicit their input and expertise on new transit planning and policy initiatives. This is why the Cabinet leadership is working to create a Transit Corridors Congress, or a Community Advisory Board. With community experts as partners, we can start identifying issues, concerns, and opportunities for improvement well in advance of the implementation of new developments or projects. We're already working towards the formation of this Congress and potential funding sources to ensure its success, and hope that we can count on City Council support to continue this effort. I'd now like to introduce to you Ms. Mercedes Marquez, Deputy Mayor for Housing and General Manager for the LA Housing Department, who will discuss the importance of equity, the consolidated plan, and place-based implementation along transit.
Ms. Mercedes, please.
Good morning. We, in the city family, have constant discussion about how it is that municipal government actually shapes policy and actually contributes to the creation of jobs. I would say to you that it is more difficult for a local government to actually create jobs than we would all like to believe. Before you, the level of effort that is taking place, both from government, from community, and considering the rubric of policies that are required to actually bring the opportunity to bring neighborhoods to become those villages that we dream of, this is what that looks like in actuality. The rubric of policies that speak to ensuring balanced investment, that both entice middle-class migration and permit low-wage workers to take advantage of transportation investment, creating mixed-income neighborhoods, is referred to as equitable development. This transit corridor has adopted those policies. We are the first city in the United States to actually adopt an equitable development policy in transit. We are the first city in the United States to have recently involved ourselves and given to HUD the first transit-oriented development consolidated plan, which deals with $90 million of investment every year, and over 5 years brings to us $2.1 billion of investment. It is working together to ensure that we invite the middle class into neighborhoods that have been needing more investment, but also retain all of the qualities that allow working class families to remain in what is a vibrant neighborhood. This together, leveraged with Measure R, is what the future looks like. And I am so proud that at this point, Los Angeles is actually at the point of the future and not following behind. Thank you
very much.
If I could introduce from the City Planning Department, Director Michael LeGrand.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Council members.
Before you begin, it's a general announcement here in Chambers for all those who are talking. There's great rooms in the back. You can talk as loud as you want. But right now, let's listen to these very dedicated and important remarks on behalf of Mr. Huizar. Thank you.
Good morning, Council members. Michael LeGrand, Director of Planning. The Transit Corridors Cabinet is a very vital instrument to move Los Angeles forward. Through our community plan program, areas such as Hollywood, West Adams, and South LA, who are have updated community plans, will have the benefit of connecting those transit corridors with their station areas. As you know, in Los Angeles, every neighborhood's unique. Every neighborhood has their own voice, their own sense of identity. By developing these plans in concert with the other departments at the table, we're not able to provide a holistic approach and look at the needs of those communities. Every station area has a unique makeup and a unique set of circumstances. Some may need cafes, coffee shops, where others may need affordable housing or higher density housing. In other areas, preservation of historic resources is very important. So using a fine surgical approach, going through the city and looking at the different opportunities around the new station areas and existing station areas will really put Los Angeles on the map for a mobile future and allow for a mobility element that's currently underway in the department to take hold. I'd like to be brief with my comments and let you know that we'll be coming back before you with many community plans in the next coming year, and we'll be focusing those around the new station areas and the corridors, as well as the existing dedicated busways in the valley, to make sure that we provide the best transit options for Angelenos across the city.
Thank you, Mr. LeGrand. Jay Kim, Senior Transportation Engineer, Department of Transportation.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members. All of this great transit-oriented planning was put to a real test on the Crenshaw Light Rail project. MTA is currently in the process of procuring a contractor for the project. It is at 30% design. However, all of us felt compelled to sort of relook at the project to see if we can make it better through the lens of the Transit Corridor Cabinet. In that endeavor, we convened engineers from DOT, Public Works, and planners from City Planning Department. And we looked at the project, and in that process, we've had unparalleled cooperation and coordination from all of the departments that were involved. I think this has to be the future of how we plan cities. In the Crenshaw example, it became very clear to us that it was more than about just moving cars and making the trains work, but it was really about weaving all of the transportation layers, including bikes, peds, cars, and trains, into the fabric of the community. And I think we want to make sure that when we do these kinds of planning work in the future, that we position all of these public infrastructure in a way to really spur future private investments to really bring about economic vitality and enhance mobility to the community. So I think in conclusion, I hope the council continues to support us in this new endeavor, and I think this is a new chapter in city planning for the rest of us. So thank you.
City planning and city transportation, etc. Thank you very much. And let me just quick question. Are skateboards allowed to be in the street as like a bicycle?
I don't think so.
Because I see a little more about that, so let's be cautious on that for safety. But look at that. You look good to skateboard too, Jay. But anyway.
Thank you.
Here we go. And I call on Mr. Reyes.
When you look at the skeleton, if you will, of the city, you go back to the turn of the century, we had an amazing rail line system that could take you from the San Gabriel Valley to the beach. Move forward to World War II, we have an industrial base. It's a generator of different industries based on movements along the rail lines. As a result, many of our neighborhoods whose community plans are now being addressed are stuck and frozen in time in land use patterns that are stuck to the 1940s. Those very same areas, you have housing up against factories, apartments up against rail corridors. You have a clash of uses, a decline. Council President, could we please have...
All right, for second announcement, I order anyone who's doing a conversation out of the chambers. Let's have attention to the dedicated staff and the words. Thank you, Mr. Reyes. I order you on behalf of Mr. Huizar, who doesn't like me to order anybody. Thank you.
So when you look at these older neighborhoods that are frozen in time, and we finally have an opportunity through these transit corridors, we're revisiting these systems. Now, in this process, and I address my colleagues on this, if you look at our neighborhoods, and I can share this with you as chairman of the Gold Line Authority 10 years ago, one of the most important factors that allowed for this change is that we started from the community's perspective. We allowed the community to define itself. Announcing this to the public is rather ominous, because now you're going to have the homeowner associations, neighborhood councils, the Hillside Federation, all the folks who want to be included in decision making wondering what will be their role. You're going to have those who need housing, and HUD has an interesting definition. When you talk about moderate and low income, in their categories, you talk about a family making $60,000 to $50,000 a year. When you reach the communities in our respective areas in the city, we're talking about families making $20,000 to $30,000 a year, if that. So that's very, very low. So the tension will arise as to who are we building this for. And I would humbly suggest to you, colleagues, that as you go through this process of embracing this corridor analysis, that we find a place for those voices to be heard. In my particular case, I worked with the English as a second language adult schools to bring out the Spanish-speaking who, for many reasons, could not participate in the public hearing process. But we overlaid their schooling with the notion of civic participation in the EIR process so that their voices could be heard. That, I think, would create an environment where you minimize lawsuits, you bring in advocates, but the advocates for housing are now speaking to the Hillside Federation. The Hillside Federation is now speaking to the Neighborhood Council. The Neighborhood Council can now define its space to your planners in your respective offices. I share this with you because it's an experience that caused a lot of creative energy, a lot of tension, but at the end there was consensus. But why recreate the wheel when we know what's in front of us? So I share this with you with the best intentions. I'm hoping that you are listening, but in the process, when you fold in those who are the workforce, those who would use it, especially the individuals who would take that 1 minute and say, maybe I don't need my keys, I can use the shuttle, I can use the light rail, I can use the bus, because it's convenient and desirable. So I just wanted to share these thoughts with you, colleagues, and I thank those who are creating this environment.
Thank you.
But those are the elements I think we need to put in place.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Huizar to close.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all for your comments. And thank you, Mr. Reyes, for your leadership on these items and planning of Los Angeles. And this is an exciting time for the city of Los Angeles, as you know. And I want to thank this cabinet for all the hard work you put into this and the work you will be doing. This is both a thank you for your past and encouragement to keep doing the good work for the future. From Bill Roshan, Mercedes, Jay, and our friend Dean Matsubayashi and Michael O'Grand. I think it's great that we see all the different departments working together along with the community to make this possible, and that's a great way to move forward. I think we have all the pieces in place. But you know, clearly Los Angeles is in transition. We're making the city more walkable, we're providing more bike options. But when we think about transit, and we've talked about it, everybody's mentioned it, the transit is not only about getting people from point A to point B, but it's also building community and getting people together from all walks of life. As we're moving forward and building a streetcar for downtown LA, we're seeing that there's a certain demographic that wouldn't ride the bus, but there's a certain demographic that would ride the bus. A streetcar, everybody rides the bus, this streetcar. And we're looking for ways to create community by creating multi-modes of transportation where everyone feels comfortable and wants to do it, and it will bring us all together. Not only better transportation, but it brings all of us together. And as everybody knows, the Measure R, this investment is building new lines, and the presentation mentioned how many new stations will be built. And the critical piece about this is that we're not looking for those empty, vacant lots at times or in the highly dense neighborhoods as ours. They're there with the construction of these lines, and we're rebuilding, remaking those corners. Usually when you want to build transit-oriented development, you say, well, how are we going to make this? We no longer have the CRA, we know eminent domain power, but here we have these great opportunities to think ahead of time what we would like these to do. Although we're doing a fairly good job on the Gold Line with a number of transit or TOD sites there, our mistake was that we didn't think ahead. We're now fumbling again with the decline of the real estate market and the recession when we had plans for them and they fell through. Now we're scrambling around trying to see what fits, as opposed to we had some principles or parameters and thinking ahead what this could look like. We could have easily fit something in there that makes sense for everybody. So I want to thank everybody. I'm excited that in my district we're moving forward on some of these programs. In Broadway, for example, on Spring Street with the bike lanes and the parklets, the city's first ever parklets. Highland Park on York Boulevard, we have the city's first ever bike corral where you can park your bikes. We took one lane of traffic and expanded our our bike network when people thought it wouldn't be possible to put a bike path through York. We're building a little pocket park in that area, and on Huntington Drive in El Sereno, and same on First Street where the goal line is going. We're thinking ahead now in terms of what we can be doing there. So it's possible. It's about complete streets, TODs, and thinking ahead, planning ahead, which what you guys are doing. So thank you for your work, and we look forward to having a continued conversation with this council and the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Huizar. Thank you, staff. This is a report, right, Mr. Clerk? So do we vote on it, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir. It is a motion
All
for
right,
consideration.
so let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
13 ayes. Forthwith on this, and also 23, correct? 24? 24 forthwith. 24 northwest. Next item.
Mr. President, the amending motion that we've been holding item 23 for has been circulated
Has
and
been
is now before
circulated
council.
with the approval of council. On 23, Mr. Parks?
Thank you very much. I just want to give some background. This motion is being circulated to provide for MTA's meeting on May 23rd information that the city is willing to step forward on the Leimert Park stop, where they would provide 50% of matching funds for the shell that's being built, or 30% of shell and station, and also make them very competitive as far as grant applications from the California Transportation Commission or Tiger grants to add and enhance on the Crenshaw line. Mr. Rosenthal can talk about the issue of dealing with Westchester, but that's above ground station where the funding would also allow that community to have access to a station within their community. And so we ask that this amend the priorities of this report today on number 23, and appreciate all of the seconds that are on there.
Mr. Buscaino, the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise in support of the Transportation Committee's recommendation, and I strongly urge an aye vote on item number 23. And especially supportive of the priority based on the priority that's been placed on the pavement preservation as chair of Public Works Committee. As you know, Councilmember Englander and I proposed a bond measure that would fund the reconstruction of every failed street in the city of Los Angeles. Just to continue to reiterate that nearly 9,000 lane miles in the street of Los Angeles are in D or F condition. An absolutely critical component of that proposal, or any proposal to improve the condition of our streets, is maintaining adequate funding for ongoing maintenance of our street system. Simply put, before we embark on improving our streets, we must, at a minimum, commit to preventing them from getting worse. Otherwise, streets that are currently in A, B, and C condition will become Ds and Fs, and we'll never be able to catch up. Colleagues, we have a long-term funding problem as it relates to maintenance of our street system, with the gas tax that will continue to decline as the fuel efficiency of vehicles improve. Bonding against future Measure R revenue provides a short-term solution to funding shortfalls, but it only buys us time. Borrowing money to pay for ongoing maintenance expenses is bad financial policy. However, it's the lesser of two evils if the other option is allowing our streets to deteriorate. Regular maintenance is much more cost-effective than waiting until the streets need complete reconstruction, which can cost up to 10 times as much. This is a nationwide problem, and will require cooperation on all levels of government to rethink the way we fund street maintenance and implement a long-term solution, a new funding mechanism that is not tied to fuel consumption. So on item 23, I encourage an aye vote.
Very good, Joe. Mr. Rosendahl of the 11th. Billy Rosendahl.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I got to say, Mr. Parks, you're a class act. Because in this motion, as we all can see in this motion, it talks about a Westchester stop as well as a Leimert Park stop. A Measure R local returns to obtain a $40 million contribution for an underground station at Leimert Park and $15 million city contributions toward a rail station in Westchester as part of the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Crenshaw Light Rail project. This is phenomenal. This ties 2 light rails together that goes into the central terminal. And Mr. Parks, God bless you for that leadership on that. It was enthusiastically supported by the committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. See other no speakers on the queue. Let's open the roll. On 23. Close the roll.
Amended.
As amended. Excuse me, Mr. Bruce?
On the amendment.
We got it. We already heard you speak. You spoke eloquently. For a quick comment, Mitch?
Yeah, just a quick comment on this as well. Is this you said on 23, you didn't say with the amendment, so is this with the amendment as well?
That's with the amendment.
If I can ask if you could, for Mr. Buscaino to just share additional thoughts.
Push your stand up real quick.
Yeah, on 23A, colleagues, I believe that it's important to get this report back, and I would ask that we have a joint Public Works Committee meeting in addition with Transportation to hear what CAO has to offer. So I would just add that friendly amendment.
It's a good friendly amendment, Mr. Rosendahl. You like that? Good. Great. Hold on here, Mr. Wesson.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. We don't have the time. We need to send this with Mr. Weezer when he goes to the next MTA meeting tomorrow. And so that's why we take this action today. I don't see a problem in doing what you want to do. We don't have to do that right now, so we need to move forward on this as is, and then we will address concerns that you have and gladly call a joint hearing. Okay? Are you good?
Absolutely. You know, as I mentioned, we need to ensure that some of this critical funding needs to be in place for the pavement preservation. Otherwise, this $3 billion problem we have is going to turn up to be a $9 billion problem as long as we continue to sit on this. So I'm okay with that.
All right, we're ready. Mitch, you're okay? We're going to vote now, Mitch?
Just for a point of clarification, and I'm good with this, and I think it's a good plan. I just so I understand it, it says here to be amended to include the instruction for the CAO to present a proposal to bond against. So that proposal to bond against, would that proposal then come back to this body?
Everything always comes back to this body.
For clarification, I just want to ensure.
Clarification.
That's the city attorney?
City clerk. City attorney is reading it diligently.
I'm just trying to figure out the process in this, that's all.
I would ask whoever drafted it whether it should return.
So what I would suggest then is to just satisfy what's being asked of Mr. Buscaino and supporting this initiative, which I think is a good idea, and understanding full well the time as well, was then that instruction that become a report back with the instruction for that bond, but that before it comes back here, so we go ahead and vote to support this, but that instruction to report back come back to that joint committee that Mr. Buscaino is suggesting of both Transportation and Public Works, and that would, if I could suggest it, that just follow that process. I think it would incorporate what everybody's suggesting.
Our issue today is to get our message to the MTA, which meets tomorrow.
Correct.
Which Mr. Weezer is going to
So that would satisfy that.
Okay, good. That's real important. But anything then?
So I'll just need a second on that then. Okay, a second on that.
There's a second. Is that a friendly second? Yeah. All right, good. Sounds good. Well, let's open the roll. Oh, Mr. Reyes? Let's call for the question, or...
I'd like to speak to the issue.
Please, Mr. Reyes, sorry.
When we look at priorities, budget, CAO, is it my understanding that with the action that will be demonstrated by our city, does that give us the capacity to decide funding priorities in terms of projects in different districts? Or are we just talking about a dollar amount that we need to bond to make sure we get funding? I just need some clarity on that. Can anybody speak to that?
You know what I think we should do? We should ask the CLA, just real quick, Jerry, how we're going to solve this. Is a good thing, everybody. I think we pass it, we move it forward, but to clarify, Jerry.
No, but to me, there are expectations that each one of us has. There are projects that we all have prioritized, and there's limited dollars. we have budget constraints. So how we define that amount and what we can bond against and for what are critical steps, and I just need some clarity as to how we are defining those issues. If it's going to be general, then let's be general. But let's not set up an amount knowing that we have certain projects already in mind because no one's bothered to talk to respective offices as to what's being prioritized.
Mr. Miller's right there, and Maria Sosa Roundtree from MTA CLA employee.
Well, I'll start and then let Maria jump in. But the item before you is the priority list for Measure R. There is the amending motion to report back on the bonding plan. So that is all before you today. What is before you is the list of priorities.
And then the motion, again, would amend the priorities to have a report back from the CAO that would identify how we would bond to get the $55 million that's included in here. And that would be presented to now the Joint Public Works Transportation Committee meeting. If that's endorsed, it would come to the council. So we are not bonding or doing anything without your authorization. This is just a report back.
Okay. And so my assertion is then that given the list that's there, that each one of our respective offices will have a chance to speak to how and when these get funded.
Yes. Yes.
Mitch, real quick.
Very quickly. And colleagues, one of the reasons I'm supportive of this, but suggestive of the fact that because this is a new item, 23A, but it come back together when that report on the bonding mechanism is ready, with these list of priorities as well to go to Public Works and Transportation, is because while this went to Transportation as it should, what came out of the Transportation priorities, if you read it, are street repairs, road repairs, sidewalk access ramps, crack sealing and pothole repair, median island maintenance. The bulk of what came out of the Transportation Committee, which I think did a fantastic job on this, is Public Works and Nature, of which I'm not on either committee, but in terms of following the spirit of what came out of that, I think it makes a lot of sense. So we look at it citywide, holistically, because these are limited resources, and how we're going to reach that. We just simply add the 23A to the list of priorities for the Joint Committee.
Let's get the vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Parks.
I'd just like Maria to clarify, these priorities were not just invented in the T Committee. I think the Council approved this list a couple of years ago, and we're just re-emphasizing and moving some around. I think in the committee they moved median around, but these 8 or 10 have been around for a couple of years.
Most of them have been around, yes, like bike and ped. Debt service was a new thing, but generally that's true, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, no other speakers on the queue. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
All right, forthwith on that matter. And what's the next item?
Mr. President, that brings us to item 38 called Special for Cards.
All right, we're going to call Mr. John Walsh for the cards on this. And as he's out of time, John, but I want to let you know your card will go into the archives as a record. So is there any other cards on 38? No other cards. Let's open the roll on 38. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item.
Mr. President, that brings...
I love you.
Well, Mr. President, we do have a special one for Council's consideration. I believe the City Attorney will speak to the findings.
Mr. City Attorney, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the posting of today's agenda, City staff has learned that the presence of the city's appointee is critical to the Expo Metro Line Construction Authority's meeting tomorrow. Time-sensitive, eminent domain matters are on the agenda, and the city's appointee's presence is necessary for the board to attain a quorum at the meeting. Neither the city's appointee nor the alternate can attend due to schedule conflicts. Immediate action is required to appoint Jay Greenstein as the alternate representative so that the authority could attain a quorum at tomorrow's meeting. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Let's open the roll on the substantive motion that we have to do the findings. I'm just testing you on the findings. Let's open the roll, close the roll, Tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
13 ayes. Findings have been seen. Any comment on this, members? No comment? Okay. It's a public comment card from Mr. Sachs. Get up here right now. But before you speak, Mr. Sachs, wait right there. Want a special welcome to Bill Mack, a great internationally known artist from Minnesota. Please stand up, Mr. Mack. Give him a big hand and a welcome to Los Angeles, Bill. Thank you. Have you ever heard of Lenox, California? Okay. Here we go. I got it.
Thank you. Good morning, special. You're appointing a non-elected official to take the place of an elected official on the Expo board? And based on the actions you just took regarding the necessity to have this budget item regarding the bonding.
He is not talking about this item.
I'm talking about Expo Line, and based on the actions that the council just took, you're appointing somebody who's not an elected official, right? He's not an elected official. Do you have the authority to appoint somebody who's not an elected official? We don't have a question. Do you have an opinion on that, Mr. City Attorney? Do they have the authority to appoint somebody who's not an elected official?
It's your comment only. That's okay,
I'm just
Arnold.
saying he's making commentary about what I'm on and off the agenda. And the item is regarding you're appointing somebody who's not an elected official. And the Expo Board, according to the state legislation, is made up of specific personnel, which includes elected officials and non-voting officials. So having the person on the board as a non-voting official, does that make it a quorum? And let's not forget the LA to Pasadena Blue Line Construction Authority that Ed Reyes sat on for 4 years before it was official. And Mr. City Attorney, did you have an opinion on that? No. So when I'm on and off the subject, I got an idea what I want to talk about. But you just increased the city's structural debt by voting to bond on Measure R funding. Is this person going to do the same thing? We don't know, but...
All right, Arnold Sachs, thank you. Mr. Walsh, please. Public comment. On the subject.
Right. John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org for information purposes only. Anybody but Garcetti for mayor, chairman. Let me explain to you what's happened now. We have laws about they can't vote on anything unless it's agendized. Okay. It's a long series of laws. They're able to shortcut this by a state law that says there is a dire emergency. Because of this dire emergency, they don't have to, we don't know who this guy is. I'm asking for some paper on your motion. They have no paper. They've decided tomorrow they need this man at the Expo board. So it just goes right through without any vetting. Now, I would accept this if you had a good record of appointments. But remember, you voted 15-0 for a man who's the Villaraigosa's appointee, and this is Villaraigosa's appointee, who then ended up with what? Scads of kiddie porn, who said that his mind was controlled by another planet. Now, this is all on the record. So what they're doing now is deciding, there's not one person up here who knows who this guy is, who said not true. Okay, why don't you come up here? Who is he? Is he a friend of yours? Now he won't tell. What is the guy? Why don't you bring it up? Tell the public, and you have the right, who this man is. I challenge you, Mr. Rosendahl, and any of you, to tell us who the hell this guy is and why you're putting him on there. And we have no statement of economic interest. He may have all sorts of conflicts of interest, but you're going to slam dunk him because he's a personal friend of Mr. Rosendahl. HollywoodHighlands.org.
We'll go Mr. Koretz for a comment.
Yes, Jay Greenstein is my transportation staffer.
He already has a conflict of interest statement on file, although he'll have to file a supplement, but there's no conflicts.
Very good, Mr. Peretz.
He does work on the Expo, on the 405, and on several other projects impacting my district, and is a full-time transportation staffer.
Have him do something at Hollywood Highland will make Mr. Walsh happy. Anyway, no other speakers on the queue. Open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item.
Mr. President, that brings council to general public comment.
All right, Henry Marin. Henry Marin.
Good morning. Yesterday, y'all made me proud. You looked like you knew where you was going. You put a hub, you put a freeway. I mean, put the airport. You got trains coming in and out. You look like you're going somewhere. But you still, and the MOU 35 and 62 and the Hackley MOU shows us in black and white what Miss Ozzie Gonzag and Mr. John Ferrero and their colleagues and their successors agreed to shelter from the pay of others and me on a temporary basis. In this State of the Union, temporary basis is 1,000 hours or less, or 6 months or less, in the course of a year. And we know how much was sheltered on an ongoing basis. So it's easy to track the money. We know the city sheltered 10% of the base pay and used for the benefit of the people in 35 planning districts in the city of the LA. We know that the city and the union, city and the Housing Authority invested money in public buildings. I mean, union buildings, union stocks, and union securities. Now, you know, when you shelter in money, it doesn't go to the settler. It's got to come back for the person it was sheltered for, which is Hackla and Coley employees. And the only person authorized to shelter benefits for Hackla and Coley employees in this State of the Union is CalPERS or Lacers. So this money has to be rolled over. Why didn't Rick Tuttle, Laura Chick, and Wendy Grew account for this money? It shows it in black and white. It's on a temporary basis, 6 months or less. And it's just, you don't see our W-2s, but they see our W-2s. They know this money's going to the same people over and over. Thank you for letting me go past this.
Byron Barras. Byron, next speaker, please, followed by Mr. Sachs and Mr. Walsh. Gentlemen, if you want to come closer to the microphone, you can.
Yeah, I wanted to make there's an international call to the return to the Glass-Steagall Act, and I'm asking just everybody to have some sort of, you know, when you're private or even when you're working, council members and others, to press their state legislators, but to reenact the Glass-Steagall Act, H.R. 129. And I wanted to read the statement of the preamble to the Banking Act of 1933 is as follows: to provide for the safer and more effective use of the assets of banks, to regulate interbank control, to prevent the undue diversion of funds into speculative operations, and for other purposes. Now, in Section 2 of H.R. 129, the title of that section is Glass-Steagall Revived. Now, there's an article put out by Huffington Post titled in April 29, titled Latest DC Wall Street Brainstorm, Bailouts with Your Bank Deposits. So this goes back to my statement a week ago, I believe, or a few weeks ago, but that on December 2012, FDIC with the BOE are in cahoots to steal your money. Just take it literally. So we're in a far worse crisis now, and Glass-Steagall will HR 129.
All right, now we have John Walsh, Arnold Sachs, whoever gets to the mic first. Here we go.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Just go to J. Walsh Confidential. Okay, Hillary is coming. Hillary is coming. Remember, I put this on our website 3 weeks ago. Everyone said I was crazy. She's coming next week. She's coming for Gruel. The vote here will be decided by turnout among women, turnout Hispanic women, black women, Asian women, all women, historic first woman mayor of the city. That's what's going on, and that's what Hillary will say. Anybody but Garcetti, he's gone already, he's out of campaigning. Anybody but Garcetti for mayor. And remember, the United Farm Workers, this is your choice. Everybody out there, anyone who calls himself a progressive or a Democrat, your choice is someone who's blessed by the spirit of Cesar Chavez or someone who is blessed by the spirit of Kevin James, a fascist piece of garbage that Garcetti goes out to the valley, tries to find racists, and campaigns with him. Anybody who votes, anyone who calls himself a Democrat who votes for Garcetti, should be ashamed of yourself. Anybody but Garcetti. And now I'm telling you, I'm not going to go into the issue. I ask everyone out there to Google Garcetti foster children. Garcetti foster children, and see what comes out from the Jewish Journal. And I'm telling you right now, there are 6 missing foster children that Garcetti has that he will never tell us what happened to them. Garcetti foster children. You can notice that whenever I speak, did any of them deny that they put a porn master, a kitty porn master, that they appointed him? No.
Mr. Walsh.
HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Walsh. Have an afternoon better than you had a morning. Now, Mr. Lennox.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Arnold Sachs. I sincerely regret not being here for the airport, that fiasco that must have occurred here yesterday. Just so you know, this is from February 17, 2013. It's Voters Bring Up Common Issues. And in this story, it mentions in Venice, 75,000 cars and trucks passed the intersection of Lincoln and Washington Boulevards. Because in yesterday's Daily Breeze, it had a list of people that were for and against the airport expansion. And one of them is Venice for Change. And an activist, Marta Irvy, runs a sophisticated community blog. Irvy asserts a runway change would require the temporary closure of Lincoln Boulevard and would cause West Side gridlock. So what does 75,000 cars passing through an intersection cause? That's not gridlock? What is the cutoff point? And I'd also like to know, in that committee report that was presented yesterday, was there any amount of presentation regarding jobs that were created from the south runway expansion, where they widen the south runway? Or was there any part of that report that mentioned the construction of the new Tom Bradley terminal and the gates, how many people actually worked there? But more importantly, just to change the subject, you just heard the council agree to increase the structural deficit, that's money you pay on bonds, by supporting a Measure R movement. And then this very quickly, on the 23rd, the mayor produced his budget, and it states here 3 years ago we projected a deficit of $1 billion. And from a debate, we have Jan Perry stating that we have to respond.
That completes your comment, Mr.
We have a $1 billion deficit
Would you cut his microphone?
years.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. That completes public comment at this time. Mr. Clerk, what's before us?
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
So ordered. Next item.
The desk is clear.
Any announcements, members? Any announcements? We're well into the Brit Week. My announcement today is we're going to salute John Parkinson. John Parkinson, the great architect who immigrated to the United States from Great Britain, will be honored tonight by the British of Southern California. His iconic vision brought forth some of the greatest buildings, including Union Station, Bullock's Wilshire, the Peristyle, and the Coliseum, as well as our very own City Hall. There's a book. Stephen G. has published this book, this author. It'll be great to have that tonight here in the Tom Bradley Tower. Ms. Perry.
Adjourning motion.
Any other announcements? Would all please rise for adjourning motion?
It's time to go.
Ms. Perry.
I would like to adjourn in memory of Donna Lee Andrews, who was president of the Lee Andrews Group, a Los Angeles-based public affairs and environmental consulting firm. She was a longtime resident of Long Beach, California, and attended Garfield High School, where she excelled as an athlete in various sports, and received her bachelor's degree in psychology and philosophy from Scripps College, and later earned a master's degree in public policy and politics from Claremont Graduate University. She was a tireless advocate for strengthening the community by creating opportunities for women, minorities, and disadvantaged people, and she used her expertise to assist with environmental mitigation measures to guide land use and development projects through the municipal approval process and to educate and unify communities around environmental and coastal issues. This important work was the impetus for her establishment of the LA Group while studying law at the University of Southern California. As a result, LA Group has been providing community outreach, government relations, and environmental services to large-scale public-private partnership projects for over 20 years. In addition, Donna was involved in a host of community, civic, and business endeavors, including serving as the board vice president for the National Association of Women Business Owners, board parliamentarian for the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce, and former board president of the City of Los Angeles South Area Planning Commission. She was an avid reader with a particular regard for biographies and loved travel, and with every trip, a book and a chance to learn is what she enjoyed most. She is survived by a host of family and friends who loved her dearly, and she will be sincerely missed.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday you heard me mention Shanna Horowitz, a world-renowned famous artist. The decision has been made that at 2 o'clock at Mount Sinai on Sunday, this coming Sunday, will be a memorial service. So I say to all of her friends, it came on so suddenly from all over the world, we're going to be doing it on Sunday at Mount Sinai at 2 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mount Sinai in Culver City?
No, the
Hollywood Hills?
Sepulveda and Rinaldi. In the valley.
In the valley. Thank you very much. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Englander.
Colleagues, please join me as we mourn the loss of Jesse Wilkes, 27 years old. He was a graduate of Cal State Northridge. He was a veteran. He actually did 2 tours in Afghanistan. He was an alumni of El Camino Real High School, my alma mater. He attended CSUN, as I said, as well, and he was also part of the Silent Natives Motorcycle Club, which is made up of veteran riders. Tonight, we'll be having a candlelight vigil at 9 p.m. On the corner where he passed away this past weekend from a tragic motorcycle accident at Winnetka in Devonshire. I was actually at the scene this weekend as well, and it was a terrible incident. We'll be pushing to install in his memory and in his name a left turn signal there. So we'll have the candlelight vigil tonight. We're going to have the military funeral will be held Saturday, May 4th at 10 o'clock at Oakwood Memorial. Tonight the candlelight vigil is at 9. 27 years old. A veteran, a true hero in our community. And to come back after 2 tours and pass away in such a tragic incident. It took his life way too soon. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family. Mr. Zine will be there with me, I believe, tonight as well.
Thank you very much. No other adjourning motions. Let's go forward and serve the city well. Every day is a blessing. This meeting's over.